Hey everyone, this is the Hydra Hut, and we're going to talk about The Demon, Hell is Earth. I think this actually came out last month, but book 2 is coming out on the 27th, so I'm going to go ahead and cover this because I haven't seen anybody else talk about it. This is Etrigan Returns. We're going to find out later that that's Etrigan. Let's start. So it opens up with this kind of ugly little girl in hell. She's asking for help, and we see a demon's hand come out. She starts to catch fire. The demon thinks this is pretty funny as he's doing it to her. And then suddenly we jump into a room as our protagonist wakes up from a dream. The little girl was part of a dream. As he's waking up, he's got a lot of thought bubbles with the red text around them. We find out that it's actually the demon inside of his head, basically talking to him, upset that he woke up from the dream before the good stuff started to happen. Protagonist gets up, goes to the mirror to look at himself, get a bottle of drink to try and shut up the demon, but a bottle gets swiped away as Etrigan starts to mock him for thinking that he can cover him up with some booze. The story rolls along. The protagonist basically just ignores him, starts thinking about that little girl and what's going on with it, and trying to figure out why he keeps dreaming about her. Etrigan's really more interested in where they are, which is Death Valley. Protagonist is still trying to figure out what's going on with the little girl, and as the scene progresses, we get this little segue scene here of a motorcycle, which takes us to the roadside motel. Should have been the roadhouse, but it's the roadside motel. The person on the motorcycle is this woman here. This isn't the greatest shot of her, but she's actually pretty interesting. The dialogue suggests that she's having these dreams too, and she actually knows what's going on with them. As she's kind of monologuing to herself, these guys in the background come up behind her, and we get, "Excuse me, miss, Xanadu. Whatever, you seem a bit jabbery. You okay?" "Yes, thank you. A lot of the time by yourself can lead to many soliloquies. Now, if you'll excuse me, preferred if I didn't. Preferred if you had a drink with me. Please." And she jerks her arm away from the obviously creepy, rapey rednecks, because all rednecks are creepy and rapey. Underground Geek can tell you that for sure. She whips him across the face with her helmet, dropping him to the ground instantly because that shit hurts. His buddies start to give him some aid, and she's really just nonchalant about the whole ordeal. The guy got whacked in the face, manages to call her a cow, and that pisses Xanadu off. And we move on to the next scene, which is, again, back out in Death Valley, a little minivan with a family in it, and we find out that the little girl from the dream, looking quite a bit less detestable, is in part of this family. Oh, and she's having dreams, basically the exact same dream that everybody else is, where she's getting lit on fire, so she's not having the greatest time right now. We jump back to our protagonist, who's looking badass, pounding down the booze without a shirt or shoes in his rundown shack. You'll note there's no power. He has no electricity, which means no running water. Pretty happy place. The demon right now, though, is basically monologuing about how much power this place has compared to everywhere else they've ever been. And he's just going on and on about the raw power here when our protagonist notices a streak shooting across the sky. The demon's pretty much ignoring him, still going on and on about the great power here. We see the streak getting brighter and brighter, and find out it's a missile. And look at this explosion. So the demon's monologue kind of suggests that this is something more than just your average atomic missile, as do the giant demon faces. All three of them. It is awesome. The story shows the family in the van. They can also see the explosion. The little girl is freaking out, which is also suggesting this is more than just a nuclear explosion. We see Xanadu with some cattle. I would look at the hat. You might recognize it from previous in the story. as we go back to our protagonist, the demon inside of him is just egging him on to release him because of this explosion that's about to take him over. He finally gives in and calls for Etrigan. But before we see him, it jumps back to the Tonopah test range, where we can assume that the missile was fired from. We get a lot of dialogue and story reveal that shows us that this guy here was being controlled by some sort of evil force. He's giving us a little narration here. He's also watching the explosion. We find out that this really shouldn't have happened. And now that he's been used up, he is instantly destroyed. We move back to the family, who are now a bunch of demons after this poor little girl. Some great dialogue here, but I don't want to read it because I don't want to ruin anything, and it has a lot of callbacks to stuff previously in the story. Definitely get this and read this. As the scene with her unfolds, though, they start to surround the little girl, and then that's when we get Wonder Woman and Superman. Wonderful splash ad. Actually, we get this great splash page of Etrigan. Like this. He's just badass. Saving this little girl. He fights off the now demonic family. For his own gain, of course. He's a demon. He doesn't care about the little girl. As he finishes up the fight, though, he starts to go and fulfill the prophecy of his dream, basically, and finish off this little girl when we see our protagonist suddenly appear. Etrigan's pissed and confused. Tries to strike him down, but his fist just goes through him. That's when he realizes that Jason Blood, who is our main protagonist here, is now basically in the same state that Etrigan normally is in. So when Etrigan is in control of the body, Jason is an incorporeal mass that can basically mock and haunt the demon, and then vice versa. I'm not familiar with the demon, so I don't know if this is different from the original story, but it does give you a good idea of what's going on, how the powers work, and who everybody is. This is by writer Andrew Constant, who I've never heard of, penciler Brad Walker, who did a fantastic job, inker Andrew Hennessy. I thought your lines were nice, Andrew. They looked good. Colorist Chris Sotomayor. He's so good, Gabby Rivers actually named a school after him, and America Chavez. Yeah, I bet you didn't know that was actually after Chris Sotomayor. And then Tom Napolitano for letterer. Various covers. Anyway, I thought this book was definitely worth reading. If you can find it used, I would recommend it, or check it out online, but definitely get the second one that's coming out on the 27th. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe. Boom. Hail Hydra, baby.